According to market mix modeling, audio ads are 3.5 times more effective if they use stats, like 3.5 times.
Market mix modelling knows that everything is measurable. Right now, we are tracking your pupil dilation, galvanic skin response, and general levels of arousal, and determining the effectiveness of this ad.
Or if you want to get serious about measuring effectiveness, talk to Mutinex. They're the world's leading SaaS provider of market mix modeling. Marketers, think of it as a growth co-pilot. Mutinex, make better decisions.
A lot of that stuff in the beginning is great because it was so different. And then a lot of stuff now that we've done lately is it's all great. It's like continues to be great. And it's because I think the process that we have and the way we work.
G'day, Adam.
Brent?
Adam, you are super passionate about companies being brand-led.
Yeah, I am. I think the Jingo's brand-led business transformation, isn't it?
BLBT. That sounds like a sandwich I had
nice.
earlier. Yes, that's right. And one of the best examples of a brand-led business transformation comes from the unlikely category of oat milk.
Amazing.
And from the country of Sweden.
I know where this is heading.
And that brand is Oatly. And today we have someone who's been the architect of the Oatly brand, who has really had his hands in everything they've ever done creatively right from the very start, and that's the amazing John Schoolcraft.
Incredible. This is going to be a story.
G'day, John. Welcome to Black T-Shirts. Are you wearing a black T-shirt right now?
It looks like I'm wearing a gray T-shirt, which is almost black.
Almost black. Is a black T-shirt part of your wardrobe?
Yeah, I have a few black T-shirts. Absolutely.
Okay, good. It's the creative staple, mate. You got to have a black T-shirt.
Does the Ministry of Mind Control wear black T-shirts?
Yeah, sometimes.
Do you have a
We
uniform?
don't have like a uniform. We should probably have a uniform. That would be a good thing to have.
With a name like that, you need a uniform, man.
Who are the Ministry of Mind?
We'll get onto that. Maybe we'll disclose who we're talking about later. John, I'm not sure what your exact title is, but you're the creative genius behind Oatly. We'll talk about that in a sec as well. In fact, we already mentioned that in the intro, didn't we? So let me just ask you a little bit. What were you like at school? Were you always a creative soul?
I think when I was in elementary school, I was just in trouble all the time. I had to sit out in the hall and listen to the teachers, or in the first time I took Spanish class, it was like, how teachers, I don't know, in the US, they would have like a little room, the teacher's room, and it would join 5 different rooms. I had to sit in there. So I think there was always this rebellious type of, I don't know really what you're rebelling against when you're in elementary school, in the 5th grade or something, but it was just, I don't know. Yeah, I wasn't, I think that school was kind of easy. So, maybe if they asked us to write an essay in an hour, I'd wait till there was 10 minutes left and then try to write it really quickly.
Oh, you like the pressure. Where'd you grow up? Where'd you grow up in the States?
So I grew up in Seattle, and then right about the time, so West Coast, 100%, back when Seattle was just, like a smaller town, lumberjackers, hundreds of thousands, not millions. And then we moved when I was going to high school to the eastern part of Washington State, which is quite redneck and, rifles in your pickup truck, Schlitz malt liquor in the back. So it was very, very different.
You don't hear a lot about the east of Washington State. Where was that? What town?
Spokane. We call it Spo Vegas because it was so much fun back then.
I was almost in Spokane recently, and a friend of mine was there and got chased by a bear. Will I have the right town? Is that reasonable?
Could be.
Yeah.
Could be outside Spokane. There's definitely bears. So.
All right.
What was he doing to get?
He went for a run. He worked for Microsoft, and he must have been going to the HQ for some reason, and then took a little drive around. I can't remember. I don't know the story very well, and even if I did, there's not much to tell. you got into advertising with a disruptive attitude, I guess, or I don't want to fit in attitude, and then you went to the client side. Is Oatly your first client side gig?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my background's in advertising. Some of the biggest agencies, like DDB in Copenhagen or something. I ended up I met a Swedish girl when I studied. I came over. It's a long story. Like I left the U.S. When I was like 20. Ronald Reagan was president. If you think of it in perspective now, it's like, oh wow, Ronald Reagan. He was okay, but at the time it was just like Ronald Reagan. I got to get out of here. And so I left, and so I grew up my entire adult life in Europe, and I just kind of fell into advertising because I don't know. I started writing working as a journalist, and then I figured out, well, this copywriter, you don't have to write as many words. So I kind of fell into advertising, and yeah, I would say I was always the person probably getting in trouble or asking the difficult questions in meetings.
Were you driven in advertising?
Yeah, because I think that for me, every time you got a brief, you have this like naive feeling that you can totally change the world and do the greatest campaign ever. I think a lot of creatives share that, like, oh, this is going to be the greatest campaign ever. And so that was the driving thing. Like I grew up in a lot of sports, so there was a bit of a competitive, like every day is a playoff game. I know it sounds kind of dorky when you say that now, but there's just the drive to make something, the drive to make something that other people see and love or hate.
We're going to fast track because what you've done at Oatly is so remarkable. A mate of yours who was the CEO called you and asked you to join the company. Tell us a bit about that and why you said yes.
Well, first I said no. I mean, Tony he calls me up kind of out of the blue and tells me he just took a new job as a CEO of an oat milk company. And I don't know if I thought he said goat milk or something. I didn't even know what oat milk was. And it sounded quite disgusting. But I had worked with Tony off and on. I'd known him maybe 15 years. And so he was pretty persistent, and he kept, talking like, John, we can really do something with this. And I really didn't know what it was, but I really liked Tony. So I said, okay, cool. I'll do it, but under one condition. And that is that we fire the marketing department, because I don't want any marketing people fucking up my ideas. Because it's like, I don't know. It's like, if you're an agency, sometimes you get a great client. I know that agencies make their own clients, but sometimes you get their own clients. I think I just had a lot of bad luck. So I would get the clients who would usually, take away the great ideas and water things down a bit. So I said to Tony, listen, it's much better that we have makers and not approvers, and that the makers have to approve their own work, because they're the ones who can judge whether an idea is great or not, and they know when to stop. And so I don't care about moving deadlines. We can move the deadlines all we want. It's ready when it's ready. So
does that same philosophy apply for supply chain and for sales? Are they makers and approvers in every part of a business?
Well, I think one of the keys to Oatly's success was that the creatives sat in a lot of those meetings. Like I sat in finance meetings or supply chain, so I understood the business. And in doing so, there wasn't any briefs. Like we don't have briefs because we make up our own briefs. I'm not working on lasagna and snow tires or something else for a different client. So, no. So, yeah, we would make up. We have our own briefs.
And so today, how big is that internal? What do you call it? Do you call it the creative team, or what do you call yourself?
It's the Oatly Department of Mind Control, but
that's where the mind control comes in. Thank you, Adam.
It's just kind of like everything we do. Like, oh, you need to have a name when you're sending into advertising competitions. Let's just call us the Department of Mind Control.
I love it, love it. And so, how big now is the Department of Mind Control?
So, I would say that there's about 50 people,
Yeah.
give or take. It goes down. There's like core creative, but there's like a core creative team. Like the creatives, there's not that many people actually generating the idea, but everyone's kind of involved in the making of the idea. So I would say that there's about roughly 50 people.
So that's interesting. So you said from the very start you wanted makers, right? We're makers. We're not marketers, and yet you just said not everyone is involved in the idea. So what do the rest do? Like what
Well, no,
are they
everyone's
doing?
involved in
Are they doing
everyone's
marketing
involved
or
in the idea. Like, sorry, the idea can come from anywhere. So
right?
everyone's literally involved in the idea. And I mean, instead of, getting a brief from someone who's trying to write a brief so that the CEO approves it, I'm sitting in supply chain and maybe they'll be like, oh, we have trouble with this, and then automatically there's an idea, or we have capacity in the factory. Let's make this product instead. I mean, when you're involved in the business, then creatives become completely, or a creative department actually is not just doing marketing or brand ideas. We're actually solving business problems. And I think if you look back, decades ago when agencies were working really closely, they solved a lot of business problems, and
Yeah.
sometimes it was a marketing problem. And we've lost that just through the last 10 or 20 years, where we wait for the briefs, they just turn the agencies into content makers, and then it's like, hey, there's free content makers on TikTok and they're better. So it's like, in the end, it's like really hard, I think, to run. I would say that the companies aren't getting out of their agencies what they could. There's so much more potential. And
John,
that's where I think that maybe the key is with Oatly, is that we are so embedded. Like the creative department is an entrepreneurial organization, and we look for opportunity and we look for business. And a lot of if you look, for example, how we launched oat milk in the U.S., I mean, the commercial side you would say, well, you've got to go through the retail outlets. You won't get in the chilled section because no one knows your product, so you'll have to start here on the dusty aisle. And there's like middlemen after middlemen, and it's just a long process. And we're like, well, fuck that. No one goes there anyway. Oat milk doesn't even sound that appetizing. The product is great. We just got to get people to try it. And so where's the best place for them to try it? Well, we have this barista edition oat milk. Let's let the baristas suggest it, because going to a cafe or coffee shop, that's where people go to live their life, talk about ideas, whatever. They're open for something new. And so we just gave the power, like lifted up the barista, gave them a product, and let them suggest it. And so that's like an idea that would come from the creative department, but it's like, part distribution, part commercial. And I think that's the interesting part more than anything of like, the Oatly story.
you've touched on so many interesting processes or way to structure an organization to have good creative ideas. A friend of mine used to say he would never invest in a company that had a marketing department because it's a signal that they don't get that it's all marketing, that the whole organization's marketing. And so if you've got a marketing department, you're screwed. For people who believe,
I run one. I run.
sorry, my question was, for people who have a marketing department, what do you suggest?
I mean, when I said we fired the marketing department, everyone was food engineers, back in 2012. None of them were really marketing. So it's like a few people were let go, but the other ones became like the director of sustainability. So it's easy for me to say, yeah, we fired the marketing department because we were only 45 people in the whole company. I don't think necessarily that the Oatly story or the way we organized is perfect for everyone. I mean, my friend was Tony. He was the CEO. I would debate with Tony lively almost daily about ideas.
But
A
John,
lot of times,
stick with it. Stick with it. Just fuck it. Just give us what you can. Like tell them Like, how do you disseminate the brand through the business, or what?
Well, I don't know. You have to invite the people who are making the ideas into the important meetings and stop giving them fucking these stupid briefs that are just ready to it's like everything's measured. Everything's measured. I never measured anything. I don't care if people hate the ideas. If people hate a campaign we ran, they'll like the next one better.
And and how do you do things like the budget? How do you decide how to spend the budget?
Well, it's different now because now we have 2,000 employees, and I find it very, very, very difficult. But back in the day, it was like, Tony, how much money is there? You can have 5 million, whatever, kroner or whatever it was. Okay, cool, thanks. And sometimes I'd spend it, sometimes I wouldn't. When you're small, though, we would divvy the money up. Norway gets that much, Denmark gets that much, UK gets that much, and then it's like, hey, we got this great idea for Sweden. Let's just steal all the money from Norway, and we could do it. Just move. It was like we put the money on the table. We put the money on the table, and we said like, okay, creatives, it's your money. Spend it how you would spend it. Like, if you give people responsibility, the right to decide, they'll actually take that. So I would say we were very good. Like, first of all, we didn't have a budget. Like when we started, there was no money. The only thing we had was the side of our packaging. So we said, okay, let's just use
make the packaging cool. And did that make you? Do you think when you look back, do you think it actually made you more creative when you had less budget?
Yeah.
Because you have to earn the media, right? You got to get people talking about it. You got to get the buzz. So do you actually think you're more creative when you had less?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so, because the demands are different too. It's like if the only thing you have is the packaging, then you make sure that that's great.
Yeah.
And the first thing was get people to pick it up, and if they turn it, there's going to be something on the side of the pack that they cannot stop reading, and they will start reading it, and then they'll put it in. They'll go, I'll try this. The thing was in the beginning, we were only big in Sweden. And I had a lot of really stupid ideas. And one of them was, I'll just put my phone number on the side of the package. If anyone has a problem with it, they can call me. And Tony said, okay, you can do it, but it has to be your phone number. You can't ruin someone else's life. I said, okay, cool. I'll put my phone number. And then I got like people calling me up, telling me like, you're going to ruin the Swedish language. Why is everything in English? You're ruining the Swedish language. To which I would reply, if I wanted to ruin the Swedish language, I sure as hell wouldn't choose the side of an oat milk package, because no one's drinking oat milk at the time. So that would be a stupid strategy. But no, I mean, we did a lot of, I think one of the keys is you have to be a bit stupid and naive.
Speaking of being stupid and naive, when you had a nice pack before, so Oatly pre-existed, you guys coming on board. It had very traditional kind of packaging. According to marketing sciences and the focus on distinctive brand assets and making sure you hold on to what's working about the packaging, you held on to the name, but everything else you threw away. You didn't hold on to any of the rest of it. So that's point one. So that was a silly thing to do. But point two is you've then stayed incredibly consistent with the new designs that you created, which is good. But how do you stay really, really consistent with a visual identity and a brand universe that you've created, and yet also have the gumption to completely change everything? And I find that amazing that you're able to do that.
So the first part is, first of all, the packaging that we had before was like packaging that was designed by food engineers or something. I don't know. It poured from the right. It was literally, I think, some of the worst packaging I've ever seen. So the idea was, first of all, Tony and I, when we started discussing what we're going to do with this oat milk company, we went so far as to say, can we remove the oats? Because then we just have we call it oat drink. We got a drink company, it was like, it went that far. And then it was like, no, we can't do that. That's the whole thing. It's oat drink. But the thing was is that there was nothing to keep there. And Tony had said, like, okay, when we change the packaging, sales are going to drop by 40%. And we put the new packaging out, and we started getting calls from the retailers, and they're like, you should probably come into the store. Someone has stolen your name. Someone has stolen your name and launched a new product. And we're like, no, that's us. So nothing was right, and sales just took off immediately.
Right.
They didn't even a little bit. It just exploded. And it was like, we're talking like 2012, 13, 2013, 14. And it was like the Instagram age. It's like pre-TikTok, and everyone just took a picture. And it was like, it was quite exciting. Packages hit the shelves, and all of a sudden it's just all over Instagram.
And did you know you'd stick with that universe, that Oatly universe, forever when you created it? Or were you just thinking, oh, this looks good now? Or were you thinking, this has got to be the thing that's going to last us 10, 20, 30 years?
We never thought about 10, 20, 30 years, actually. So Tony and I went around in Stockholm because we thought, like, let's meet some design agencies. And so we didn't want to do a pitch because I'm totally against pitches. I don't want people working for free. So we went around and we met some. And Tony had another friend called Martin Ringqvist, and he was at an agency called Forsman and Bodenfors, which is a very famous agency. And Tony said to me, John, you can't make all the creative on this brand. You should meet Martin. I'm like, what the fuck? I can make all the creative on this brand. Like, totally. I can make it all. So I met Martin, and they had a design agency at Forsman and Bodenfors. So we said to them, okay, we'll go with your design agency, but here's the rule: do not make a design for women between 16 and 35. We don't want that. We don't want a food industry food design that fits the target group. And so when they came to present the ideas, they had 3 brilliant packages, all for women between 16 and 35. And Martin brought his art director, Lars Elfman, who just had hand-drawn these packages. And they were just like, they're basically exactly like the pack. I mean, I didn't change anything because Lars is a great designer. And it's like, here, I made these. And it was like, this is the most fucked up, brilliant, stupid thing I've ever seen. I just love it. And so there was nothing like 10 years. I mean, we were just trying to make oat milk famous. So we were just thinking like launching it in Sweden to get more people to try it. It wasn't anything more than that. Stand out on the shelf because we got no budget. And that's why we made that. And I think like the evolution, we always thought like it should change over time. It's like, and if you look at the Oatly design, it's changed a little bit. I'm sure at some point, if we feel like it feels dated, we would have no problem of blowing it up. But it feels like there's so much more room to continue to develop in that universe.
And do you?
But I mean,
and the way you think about the brand is tone of voice what holds the brand together more than anything else? Is it the design language that like how do you think about the sort of elements of the brand and what keeps the brand consistent?
We talk a lot about voice, like brand voice, more than we talk about a brand. So as you grow and you start to have a lot of markets that are working on things, the first thing they ask for is, can I have the brand guidelines? We're like, we don't have any. And they're like, what? You don't have brand guidelines? Like, no, because if we have brand guidelines, you wouldn't understand the brand. You would follow the brand guidelines. And pretty soon you have people walking around in Oatly cartons on the main street. And that's the ideal you'll come up, because you'll look at the guidelines. So there's a real feeling of like, how do you actually create the brand? And as we built the Oatly department of mind control, we brought in like amazing creatives, and some of them, like it took them 6 to 9 months sometimes. And they're like, I don't even get this brand. and it's because there's a brand voice, and it's I don't know. A lot of it maybe is my like kind of rebellious, like anti-capitalistic, fuck the corporate world attitude. And a lot of it is like Tony, strangely enough, like Tony's a listener and he's very interested and he asks questions and he's like a very interesting person. So there's kind of like a mix of, because my feeling was um if people could just meet Tony, the CEO, they would think he's really nice and then they would try the product. So, and because he was my friend, we stuck him on everything and didn't really ask him all the time if we could, just dealt with the fallout afterwards. But yeah, and that's all part of the voice too, like humans being humans, helping. Like we didn't want to be a brand and we didn't want to be a corporation. We wanted to be like a group of people helping people make some choices about how to improve their life.
So it sounds from that like it's more of a feeling than like do you even have like a set of words that describe it, or is it just something you just got to feel it? You just got to you know what I mean?
You got to feel it. We got to like a lot of after constructs, like consistently inconsistent. It's like, but we just kind of make that up so no one really knows what we're doing. It's like we had one time where we ran a campaign where someone came in to me, this isn't working at all. We need to test it. We made this we made this campaign with puppets called Norman Owl. It was like the new normal, but it was Norman Owl. And I said, why the fuck do you want me to test it? Because if it tests great, I'm never going to run it again anyway. Then I'm just like regurgitating an idea. If it tests bad, okay, great. The next idea might be better. So it's just like, it's more of a feeling and an understanding. And you have to think like, we're not working on other stuff. So we're like totally embedded in oat milk world and sustainability and how to run a business without being at business. It's like all these things. So that gives us, it's like different ideas come out of that process.
Brent, the reason why I'd make a crap CMO?
Risk and compliance meetings?
Apart from that, it's really, really complicated, and it can also be incredibly slow and tough. For example, like how do you decide how much money to put into brand spending?
Yeah, it's a big decision, and I think we've seen a lot of marketers be really addicted to the drug of performance marketing, which gives you an immediate payback. But I think you really want to be understanding the long-term benefits of brand. You need to measure that over time, and you need to also understand that if you start trading off, spending more on brand, less on performance, you need to know straight away, is that working? Is it delivering? And so you need some sort of model to do that. Without a model, I don't know how you'd even start.
Such as what?
Well, Mutinex. It's the best one out there. It's the best one out there, man. It's SaaS-based. It's really one of the most cutting-edge marketing mix models you can get. And if you have got hard questions that you're trying to confront as a marketer, I would thoroughly recommend a tool like Mutinex.
They're also the sponsor of this show, right?
Yes.
Yeah, excellent.
John, you don't know this, but Brent and I will have these passive-aggressive arguments a lot of the time through our guests, and we're just trying to see who wins by trying to get the guest to say what we want them to say. Brent has just got you to say what he wants you to say, which is it's a feeling, and that's the vibe of it. But it's not that. I think what Oatly does really well is every single second, every single bit of real estate, every centimetre of an outdoor ad, every second of a piece of content is branded Oatly. And you manage to put the brand, and if not the brand, the visual identity of the brand, front and centre all the time. It's there, always. So it's actually just very, very functional product-based communications.
But it's not.
With a really nice...
But it's more than visual
tone.
identity. See, it's way more than visual identity because the tone of voice is what
totally,
I think
it
makes
is.
it
It's
special.
both.
I think it looks great, but for me, it's the tone like John was talking about voice. For me, it's the tone of voice that makes the brand more. I mean, they're both bits, right? Identity and tone.
It was a question. That was a question for our lovely guest. So,
well, I can tell you a few things on that. So first of all, like execution is everything. Like a shit idea perfectly executed is going to be better than a great idea poorly executed. So execution is everything. And if you look at it, like we never use logo. We always try to use a pack because no one buys a logo. They need to find the pack. So we would rather use the pack. That was at least in the beginning. Sometimes we stick logos on things. The other theory that we have is that the finest piece of creative is the shelf wobbler. Because the shelf wobbler in the retail store is the shit piece of communication that you give to the junior and say, can you write some shelf wobblers? But we would like fight over writing shelf wobblers. Like if you can get someone excited by a shelf wobbler, then the brand is great. And if you write a shitty shelf wobbler, like buy 3, get 1 now, discount. And we would try to like wake people up from their sleep while they're stopping and say really, stupid, dumb things that maybe they would laugh at. So the shelf wobbler became the test and the greatest piece. And I think that's it. There's a voice in a shelf wobbler.
Have you got any classic shelf wobbler lines?
Oh wow. Not in my head. I'm sorry.
That's all right. But that's a beautiful thought. And it kind of, the other thing I don't think you do particularly well is claims. You don't do, like it's like milk made for humans is I think your platform line, right? And which is amazing. It's a fantastic line. It's simple, but also makes you think. Do you have any other claims that you kind of constantly put out there, or what's your approach to how people make decisions? Do they have to? Do you think that you have to get awareness and you have to make them consider, and then, do you have a funnel, or do you just put cool shit out in the world?
Put cool shit out in the world. Period. The end. Here's the thing: is Oatly is a scientific company, and so we're part science and part just this like rebel stupid. Smart asses. So that's the combination that's really interesting. And we will do really super scientific, a lot of our sustainability reports, it's all based on science. So I think it's like that combination of stupid and, well, I wouldn't say stupid and smart or science and
when you do those sustainability reports, those really sciencey things, do you put stupid into them?
Of course, but maybe not we wouldn't write the copy in the same way because a lot of times that's just like straight information, but the headlines would be, the name of the report, the headlines, everything's thought through. Again, shelf wobbler. So sustainability report's important, very important. So, it's like we look at everything because we can control it. We haven't divided it up into a bunch of different agencies who all get their little piece, and then it goes into a marketing department who approves. It's like we're making all of it, and so all of it has that same feel or approach or voice.
And do you see all of it? How do you think about, quality control, creative direction, all that sort of stuff, or do you just empower your team to go make stuff?
Empower the team. I would say it's been a while since I saw like everything before it went out. We have kind of a system where we would have, executive creative directors or who look over all the work. We all trust. The whole thing's a system built on trust. Everyone working at the ODMC is like great at what they do. So there's more discussions, but we like divide things up. So in the beginning, I worked a lot in the US and I would bring the work that I thought was good. There was no creative department at all. I'd bring it back to Martin and Lars. We'd stick it on the wall and I would say, kill it. Kill everything you want to kill. And what was left is what we would run. Now we're a lot bigger. So Michael Lee looks after the US and he runs that pretty much on his own. And that's just empowerment. Again, it's like we're here to help each other. There's a trust that's built up that I think is key.
So what happens if you see something? If you see a shelf wobbler that's not on the voice, it's not on brand. What do you do? What happens? Or does that just not happen?
He loses his shit.
No, but no, but I think it can. I think that can happen. I mean, again, the whole thing is size, and it's easier when you're smaller, and more difficult when you're like what I. It's like it's hard to see everything they're making now for the Australian market, for example. You look at the big things, but then there could be details. And then, but again, you're a group of people who all are talking about the work, who know the work, who are making it. So it's not someone else, like it's not an agency that you brief that's making it and doesn't really have the voice.
In Australia, there's a very good milk company called Bonsai. They're excellent.
Are they your client, Adam?
Nah, well, they could be. Yeah, they are. So there's an agency called Gut. Gut, which is a South American originated agency, and they've got a line in their creds that say, if we understand the brand, then consider us briefed. And they have got rid of internal briefs completely. Our agency is somewhere. Sometimes we get rid of them where we can. Sometimes there's a need for them for bigger teams, or other people need to understand stuff, or it works as a communications device. I often wonder if the whole concept of a brief, and you have to be briefed and receive a brief, is just fucking with the industry completely, because then people are not getting on the forefront and trying to understand the problem or get into the business, but they're waiting for stuff to arrive, and I just hate them. And I think I'm expressing that because I think we undervalue. I think you might be undervaluing, or maybe you don't. Maybe you know how important it is to get rid of the brief, but I reckon it's a big unlock to empower people creatively, because then they're not waiting for something; they're getting in there and they're working things out. Thoughts?
Well, my thought is that 100%. I mean, that's the whole system that we built, is that you're not leaning back, waiting for something to come to you. You're actually going out looking for opportunities that you can create, or a great idea. I just never was given a brief that was so brilliant that, it's like, solve a problem. So you try to solve that problem, but here's an idea. And it becomes a buying and selling of the ideas. So for me, it's like the best thing you can have is the people making the ideas embedded in the work, thinking about it all the time, and then, making the work, and then approving the work. Now there's a difficult with that, because think about how agencies work. I mean, it's like a lot of the juniors make ideas and then they push them up through the levels of creative directors, and then eventually they go to a client. And all of them have a say whether it's a good idea or not. If you reverse that, and now all of a sudden you have to decide, when's the idea done? When is it ready? It's not an easy thing, especially like in, I would say, where there's more hierarchy in the agency world, like the US. Like a lot of like writers who are in the middle of their career aren't very good writers. They just write some stuff and then it gets pushed up. So there's an advantage of Sweden because it's a little country. The creatives work on everything. They do, first year you're out working, you're, shooting things and making things and writing things. It's just like you do a lot of work so you can do everything. And I guess that's more of a maker mentality than when you're actually have a lot bigger budgets, and you're just waiting for those approvals.
Do you have a favourite piece of work you've done, apart from your Wobbler series, which you were famous for? Is there any piece of work that you've done that you particularly love? And I want you to say something. Don't say, "Oh, they're all great." Just tell us something you really love.
always, there's a few things that I love. Like, this is the thing about Oatly is like, if you were to ask me, can you send us over a bunch of work? I don't know what to send you because it's 10 years of madness. And there's things that you kind of forget. And I always love the last piece of work that we did, you know? And so it's so hard. But if we go back to the beginning, you know, like I had time on my hands. I wasn't like working on an hourly, so I wrote all the packaging sides and just the reaction of that, I think, setting the actual voice. We also in the US, you know, we were trying to break into the US and it was like we didn't have any money, so we went to the media agency and we said, so is anyone sitting down in the basement booking some sort of media that nobody wants? And they're like, what? Like, is there a man in the basement who no one calls anymore? And it's like, well, no one wants the fronts of buses in New York City. And we were like, oh, wow, Island of Misfit Toys strategy. We'll take them all. And so we took all the buses in New York City for 3 months. And then we wrote like 75 pieces of creative. And everyone in New York was met by an oat milk bus every day wherever they went. And it was like, oh, you again. You know, it was just like super fun to make.
Did the lines you wrote on the front of those buses, were they contextually relevant to being on a bus?
Could be like, because we do a lot of outdoor. We did a lot of outdoor in the beginning. And it's just because people are bored and they're walking to work and they're thinking about their problems or maybe what they're going to do later. And if no one's thinking about oat milk and no one cares about oat milk and they don't care what it does for you. So we just thought if we could stop people in a public space and get them to maybe laugh or think, what the fuck is oat milk? Then maybe at some point in their life, they would try it. And so I think that was kind of the bus. And then again, when your friend is the CEO, it's just so incredibly enjoyable. And again, Tony was like, he's a very private person. He's very humble. He doesn't want to be famous and he doesn't want his face splashed all over the world. And that's exactly why we did it. It's because he hates it so much and you can see it. The first thing we did when we were going to launch in Sweden after the new packaging is we did a series of commercials with Tony. And we wrote him, we told Tony, we need you to be in a series of commercials. And he hated it, but he understood that it probably might work. So we wrote him a bunch of fake scripts because he's he goes in and memorizes everything. We wrote him a bunch of fake scripts so he'd be a bit confused and he would focus on the scripts. And so the night before the first shoot day, he's like, John, this is really shit. Martin's a terrible, terrible writer. These scripts aren't even funny. And I said, yeah. Well, we'll try it. And if they don't work, we'll just throw everything away and do something else. But the idea was to get him focused on the scripts. And then we just shot a bunch of commercials. No scripts. Just Tony complaining about no one wants to see a CEO. And in that series, it's all in Swedish and it's really funny. It's just us kind of fucking around with Tony. But he comes across like so genuine, so real. And we told him off because Tony's like a musician before. Like when he was like in his 20s, he was like writing music and he was big in Japan or something like that. So we knew that. So we said, Tony, can you write a song? You write a song about oat milk. And he's like, I'm the CEO of an oat milk company. I don't have time to write a song. So we said, okay, we'll write one for you, which we did. But that was just like, I don't know, messing around with his creative freedom or something. So he came to the shoot with his own song that he wrote and sang. So I think like a lot of that stuff in the beginning is great because it was so different. And then a lot of stuff now that we've done lately is it's all great. It's like continues to be great. And it's because I think the process that we have and the way we work.
You've kind of set the foundations up very, very well. And now you can just get in there and unleash it. The ad you're talking about there with Tony is he's in a field singing the song, singing a song about Oatly. It's a pretty shit ad. And then a few years later, I think you bought a Super Bowl spot, and you actually played that same pretty shit ad in the Super Bowl. Now, one of the things we've got here is something called the pub test, where we take a piece of your work and we take it down to the pub and we ask people what they think of that piece of work. And that's what we've done with the ad you're talking about now. And so we're now just going to stop, and we haven't heard this, and we're now going to stop and listen and hear what people think of that particular ad.
I love you're making Tony famous in pubs in Australia. It's like, you're actually working for the brand now. It's perfect.
The pub test is brought to you by Dealy, the insights platform where ideas go to grow.
Hey, look, it's interesting. It gets your attention. It's unconventional, that's for sure. But hey, I like unconventional. I like getting a bit weird. Could be considered a little bit lazy, but you know what? I just think it is striking. It doesn't look like an ad, so it grabs you.
As a consumer, I find it really annoying.
It's fun. It's nice. I like it.
It ran during the Super Bowl? Okay. Interesting.
If you told me that it ran during the Super Bowl, I think I would be shocked because it is kind of the opposite of what you would normally see in terms of those massive, huge Super Bowl commercials.
That makes it better, I think, because the lower production value or the simple production value makes it, I think, stand out quite well.
Do I think CEOs should be more involved in their commercials? No, I don't.
I think that more CEOs should be involved in their commercials if it's done tastefully. Like, I don't want it to be... it should feel natural and it should feel authentic, and like this one.
How long is a piece of string? I mean, not every CEO is a creative, so that's... Yeah.
Does it make me want to drink Oatly? Not exactly, no. I mean, look, I think the ad's effective. It doesn't really make me want to drink Oatly.
I wouldn't say it makes me want to drink Oatly.
Maybe.
Does it pass the pub test? Hell yeah, it passes the pub test.
Yeah, it passes the pub test.
So yeah, I think it does pass the pub test.
What are your thoughts?
I always get nervous when a majority of the people like something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I was
like,
expect-
again, it's a few years old, but we always make things where it's a 50-50 split, like 50% hate it and 50% love it. Perfect. If you're trying to make things that people actually like, you're probably going to fail and no one's even going to notice. So, but I think that's fine. Again, it was just like, I told Tony one time, I said, if we ever make it like big, if we ever have enough money to run a Super Bowl spot, I'm going to put you on the Super Bowl singing, because I want to make you famous, which he hates. And I wanted to make him like famous in New York. So when we went there, he'd get off the airplane at Newark and they would recognize him. So it was kind of a sinister little plan. And I didn't really I told him we were going to run a Super Bowl spot, and it was a weird year, it was like in the middle of COVID or something like that. So, and we ran this, and he called me a couple of weeks before. What are we running on the Super Bowl? What are we running on the Super Bowl? I need to see it. And I'm like, we're running you on the Super Bowl. And he's like, no. And I'm like, yeah. And when people ask me why, I'm going to say, you made me. You made me run the Super Bowl.
I can remember when that ad ran at the Super Bowl, and I can remember reading about the fact that ad was like an ad you'd already done a few years ago. And I just thought the audacity of just taking an old piece of film to run on your Super Bowl ad. I just love the fact that it wasn't actually made for the Super Bowl. It was just something you had lying around and made Tony famous. It's very funny.
The thought was like, become the best or the worst Super Bowl ad of all time. Both of them were good, just don't go unrecognized. And it was like, we made that for less than the catering budget, of one day at a Super Bowl spot. So total success.
And so, what we did there was pretty down and dirty kind of research. But do you do any research? Do you do any talking to consumers at all with your work, or even you don't do briefs, so you, research probably doesn't inform the brief. But like, how do you think about that at Oatly?
Well, again, back to the start when we didn't have a budget. I mean, all the money you spend, you got to spend it on something, and it's all comes from the same pot. So, do we want to like put it in an ad, or do we want to like ask people what they think? I discussed with Tony at one time, like I said, I want really good in-depth research about what's going on in society and culture and stuff. And he's like, John, we can't afford that. How are we ever going to afford it? And I said, yeah, I don't want anything. Because if you're buying research or doing like some sort of analysis of things, all the research is more or less the same. And if it's off, a little bit, then your ideas are going to be off a lot. So I think what we did instead is we just tried to tap into culture as much as we could. I mean, we're talking about like 10 years ago, but before we went into the US, everyone I meet, I was, where does culture start in the US? And it would be like a sneaker shop in Brooklyn. I'm like, really? It's like, now it's like a bit weird because you would just say TikTok. And I don't necessarily believe that everything starts on TikTok. I think things start in the real world. It's just not maybe as geographically based as before. But even when we started, it was just like, we don't have money. So at that time, we would like walk around Shoreditch in London and hand choose and point at every single billboard we wanted because we could only afford, I don't know, 7. So there's just like a lot of work that goes in. I remember when we ran a campaign in Sydney and Melbourne, and we couldn't go down there because we didn't have time. So I asked our media guy, he just went on Google Earth and he looked at every single billboard. And we sat in a room and just spun things around on Google Earth and said, yeah, we'll take that one because we want to know who's walking where and how's. It's just like, people don't do this, like write 70 pieces of creative based on where. And I think that's the thing. It's like, we really care. Like
Yeah.
we cared about what we were making, and we didn't care how much time it took. And no one could copy us because no one wanted to work that much.
Yeah.
It was just kind of like this naive feeling like,
And
What
I,
about
to
the
make something.
and what about the store? You talked about the importance of the wobbler and how you turn up on shelf. What about the store? Do you encourage your creative people to get in the store and understand how the product, turns up, or is
I think we never really spent that much time in the store because it's just, like we didn't want to do any sampling in store. We did it sampling in coffee shops, cafes. We went to a lot of music festivals. We wanted to be like, when people are open to try something, then give them something and try to be like a super generous brand. We also tried to make baristas famous instead of ourselves, like give other people some credibility. Um, there's a weird feeling like you would think that sometimes we can be almost arrogant, but then we're actually super humble. And then there's this layer of science. So it's kind of like a relatively unpredictable
do you,
person, and that's what we're trying to make.
do you do any freelance work on the side? Or do you just focus purely on Oatly?
Um, I was just thinking how I should answer that question. Um, I haven't. When are you going to air this episode?
in about a month?
In about a month.
About a month, okay. So my situation is that it's very difficult when you've made something like this that's so great to know exactly when is the right time to stop. So for the last 6 months or so, I haven't had an operational role. So no, I've never done any freelance creative work before, but I'm just advising now through a period so that there's some stability, and then I'll be doing other work going forward. So the answer is yes, but the answer is no.
So what what do you think that'll look like? Because you've had such a unique job, right, for the last decade, and there aren't a lot of companies out there like Oatly.
You've got the skill. You've got the magic.
Yeah, but the thing is that, and this is something, it's like we're a lot of people that made this brand, and it's all my friends. So if you get a chance to work with your friends sometime, it's like it becomes way more emotional when you say like, I want to do, because I'm driven by this kind of entrepreneurial challenge, and the company's much bigger and it's a bigger organization. I spend a lot of time doing just organizational stuff, and I don't really necessarily like that. So, it's like letting my friends continue. I mean, they're making fucking amazing work. So it's like more of that emotional piece, I think, than anything else, because the brand is going to continue being great, I think. Well, as long as I can't see into the future. I don't know everything, but I don't see any end to the brand stopping. So for me, it's just like also like, okay, so I have a way of doing things and I have a philosophy on how they should be done and a way that you should talk to consumers and also a way that you should work together within an organization. I believe in like doing cool shit and not being business and being friends and, arguing, disagreeing, failing is energy. It's all in like a movement to push things forward. So, I don't know. I think it's pretty exciting. Um, there's probably a good chance that I will be working with my good friend Tony again, not because I want to put his face all over some other brand, but just because what we said in the beginning is that there's no such thing as branding. It's not like an isolated silo. It's like everything in a company is brand.
Yeah.
And so few companies understand that.
Yeah.
It's how you answer the phone. It's how you buy your oats.
How
It's
you invoice your suppliers. It's everything.
Everything is brand.
John,
And
we've
brand
spoken. Sorry,
and
mate.
brand is culture.
And brand is
Culture.
yeah, and then
Culture
brand
of
is
the
and
company.
then ultimately brand is value for the business, and your valuation was through the roof, and you IPO'd, didn't you? And then it was a large valuation, right? Have I got that right? I may not. If we,
No,
I'll
it was a massive valuation, and now a few years later it's a different situation. Like oat milk isn't as new as it once was. We have anti-woke movement.
Oh, you should
every
join that. You should
yeah.
take the
Trying to
piss
do
out of how woke you are yourself before anyone. That's funny.
If you're looking for insights, don't do a pub test. Go to Ideally.
I thought we didn't believe in research.
We don't believe in bad research.
We don't believe in research. It takes forever. It's loads and loads of PowerPoint charts.
Well, because the speed of culture moves in hours, not weeks.
Yeah, so you need research to be fast. You need to be fluid. You need to be co-created. You need everybody to be able to get in on it and get the responses straight away.
100%. And with Ideally, they turn it around overnight with their fantastic digital platform.
You know what I really hate about research?
What's that?
I hate the fact that it takes forever. It's really expensive and clunky. And then it relies on some poor young sod to be speaking the bleeding obvious from the research really enthusiastically. Everyone gets bored and the insight gets lost.
I hate the stale sandwiches.
You're talking about the focus group.
Yeah. Ideally is an insights platform that lets you create with confidence. You can test ideas and innovations overnight and affordably. Visit goideally.com to find out how Ideally can unlock insights for your business.
Hey, John, I do have a couple more questions for you, and we're running out of time. We've spent a lot of time talking about the process of a corporation having a creative process. We haven't spent that much time on you. How do you yourself have an idea? So, and a good one. And so can you just spend 2 minutes just putting a magnifying glass on that and just try to break that down for me?
It doesn't necessarily. Some ideas come very quickly, and other ideas take a long time. So, I think I just procrastinate like crazy. Like I think there's a delay. Like I have to get closer. That's why it's like difficult when you're running a bigger company because everyone wants to know what's going on 9 months, and I want to deliver at the last second.
Yeah.
Because I want to see what everyone else is thinking. I want to talk. I want to, it's like I want the best idea at the last possible second. And so for me, that creative process can be quite chaotic. I don't even need a process. Martin and Lars and I, when we did a lot of the original ideas, we lived in different cities, so we never met. But because we knew each other so well as friends, we just pick up the phone whenever we wanted to pick up the phone or text each other, and then have an idea and then build on it. And if it was a shit idea, the creative process is so cutthroat. It's like you're sitting around a room, someone says a bad idea, you just ignore them. And it's quiet, and then you go on to the next idea. And because you're friends, it's like a natural process. It's just like, you don't say like, that's a shit idea, Martin. You're just quiet and wait until he comes with the next idea. And it's like, that's kind of how I think that we work. When it came to like finding the brand voice of Oatly, I think I worked 2 months with papers all over the floor. And then I just sat down and wrote 20 packaging sides in 1 hour. It's like, it just came. And I think you have to be ready when an idea comes, and then you just have to capitalize on it and work on things. So I think I don't know if it's this, well, everyone has their own way, but I procrastinate a lot, wait to the last second, and then actually, absorbing everything, and then try to make the best idea I can.
Some good rules there for the creative industry.
Yeah. No, but like you're right though, because we want to put all this process on stuff, and we want to control it, and we want, I think I think we do everything we can in corporations to stifle creativity, right? Like all that stuff we do just makes it less creative, not more, right? So you got to.
I think one of the things that I've done in the last years as the company's grown is I've just tried to cut out everything that gets in the way. As a company grows, there's just way more people. You come back from a trip to New York and you don't know anybody. It's like when you're growing so fast. So my role became just to like clear the way so that other people could work freely. And that's a creative process also, because you're just not actually maybe writing the words in a sentence, but you're actually making sure that the best idea gets out. And I think like if there's not someone doing that in a company brand side, if everyone's trying to look at the creative and trying to judge it for what it is, it's like, I don't know, that's just gonna, maybe something gets through, but it's lucky.
Yeah. It's been awesome talking to you, John. The way we like to wrap up is, this podcast is called Black T-Shirts. We ask our guests if you're going to sum up your creative philosophy in a slogan that you could put on a black T-shirt, what would your black T-shirt say?
Fantastic question. Maybe Shelf Wobbler is so underrated.
Great.
Love it.
What about here's to the Shelf
Shelf
Wobbler?
Wobbler is so underrated.
Shelf Wobbler is so underrated. That's nice.
Love it.
Yeah, great.
Love it.
That'll get some attention. Well, if we get our shit together, we'll send you said black T-shirt, and it will arrive. So I hope we do that, because that T-shirt should be out in the world. It's a beautiful thing.
I love the fact that if anyone sees it, they won't even know what a Shelf Wobbler is. So they'll just like totally ignore it. And then it's like, 50% love, 50%.
Shelf Wobbler could start they could start a conversation, I think. What's a Shelf Wobbler?
Do you remember 42 Below? It was an amazing brand of vodka. And I wanted to get a T-shirt made with just the brand key or the brand positioning of 42 Below and put it on a T-shirt. And somebody said to me, Adam, that joke is not even funny for the advertising industry. It's just funny for like planners within the advertising industry. They're the only people who would actually get that joke. But,
Yeah.
But I think that there's a whole lot of retailers who are going to go nuts when they see that T-shirt of yours.
Like 0.00012%.
Man, you wear that T-shirt. You wear that.
My T-shirt.
You wear that T-shirt to the point of sale conference, and man, you'll get mobbed. You'll be mobbed. Yeah.
No, I spend a lot of my time at the point of sale conferences around the world. I'll probably get a lot of invites now. Like, John, we have a point of sale conference in Dubai. Would you like to come? And I'd be like, I would be delighted. Is it a dairy organization point of sale conference? Because I could be the guest speaker.
Well, thanks so much for coming on, John. It's been awesome to talk to you, man. And I just think I just love you. I love the way you go about it. And as a corporate CMO who has a marketing department, has briefs, has a process, there's a lot for me to think about.
You don't have to have briefs. Man. Get rid of the briefs.
Yeah.
Get rid of the briefs.
Yeah.
What does the brief do for you? How does it? Is it like you have the brief and you feel safe?
No, it's not. No, not at all. No, not at all. I think what it does in a big, complex organization like a telco is it actually gets people to be clear, which is one of the biggest things that, you know what I mean. If we had our way, a brief would have 12 pages, and we'd want to tell people everything we could about our technology and how it was. So just getting people to simplify. For me, it's a simplifying thing, like get it on a page, agree what we're going to say, so at least you can sort of get clarity within the organization. That's what it's good for in our company. But I mean, God, if I could get rid of it, I would. But I think without it, it'd be very hard to get people aligned inside our organization. So that's what it's good for in a big, complex corporate. You hate that answer,
okay.
Yeah?
No, it's yours. So it's like. I understand you have an answer like that, but at the same time, maybe all the people should really feel the brand and what they're doing.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And look,
then you could throw it away.
And I'm certainly not slavish to the brief. I think the brief is just where we start. You know what I mean? I would never sit there, look at a piece of creative and go, the thing I hate the most is off brief as a response to a bit of creative. It's like, what do you mean off brief? I mean, the brief's just a starting point.
The brief wasn't set in gold.
Yeah. But no, it's good. I'm going to go and reflect, John. I'm going to reflect on why we have briefs and hopefully get a better answer than that too.
Perfect. Then I feel like this conversation has been a total success.
It's worthwhile.
I've actually achieved something more than just babbling on for an hour or something. It's like
no, it was awesome, man.
Results here.
It was awesome, man. It was awesome.
You're doing marketing as anyway, I think a lot of people are very envious of what you've created. It's very, very cool, man. So thank you for sharing your insights and wisdom.
Well, thank you, guys. I'm happy to share that, and it's just it's like I did a lot of this at an age that's way past where most people have to leave the industry. So it's like if you think about that, it's like some people do things at certain times because they get lucky, and it's just, for me, it just took longer that the right situation came. And then it's like when it came, it's like, well, I'm not going to pass this up. My friend's the CEO, so.
Hey, do you want to come out to Australia and speak at something?
I would love to.
Great.
I would love to.
I'll follow up and we'll get you out here.
And we'll get on Google Maps and let you have a look at the place you're going to talk and just make sure you're happy with.
I'm going to, Google Maps so I know the way in. And
Yeah, just make sure it's right,
Buy some billboards so that everyone's prepared.
That's it. Good on you, man. Lovely to meet you.
Guys, thank you very much. Take care. Thanks for getting up.
At Black T-Shirts, we like ads featuring supermodels. And the most supermodel is the Mutant X market mix model.
Picture this, if you will. A little computer with a little algorithm. And inside that algorithm is a market mix modeling program. That's Mutant X. Hello.
Or if you want to get serious about measuring effectiveness, talk to Mutant X. They're the world's leading SaaS provider of market mix modeling. Marketers, think of it as a growth co-pilot. Mutant X, make better decisions.
What's so interesting is how they've got a group of people together to bandy together to create an organisation or to create the structure of an organisation to do marketing as good as it gets done anywhere in the world, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I often talk about building a creative culture inside a corporation. I mean, that's a proper creative culture inside a corporation, and I think it's really interesting. It's really interesting how so many things that we sort of cling to in the world of marketing and advertising are actually getting in the way of pure creativity, right?
And so the brief, whenever somebody comes into our agency, the first thing they want to do is they want to have a conversation around the brief.
What boxes?
Yeah,
what
what are the
template? What's a
boxes and
template?
what are the words? And it's like this fetishization of the brief. It's just irrelevant.
Yeah.
Like, and that to me is one of the things that holds us back. But I liked your answer. And I'm not saying it's practical to get rid of briefs everywhere, but I love the fact that they've thought about this stuff and gone into it all really, really deliberately. And I think John's got 2 trays that allowed him to do that. I think he's incredibly driven and incredibly focused in a funny kind of way, but he's also an absolute misfit, wild, crazy.
Yeah. Well,
dude.
and that makes him fearless. He's fearless.
Yeah, he's fearless.
He's fearless. He doesn't care
So
if you.
pushes
He doesn't
and
care
pushes
if you
and
don't
pushes.
like it.
Yeah.
He doesn't care if it doesn't work.
No.
He's absolutely fearless, and
Yeah.
I love his. If it didn't work, let's make another one.
Yeah.
And I think that's incredibly. I just think it takes away a lot of the anxieties and worries and basically things we waste time on, right?
And then maybe the third thing is he was really nice.
Yeah.
Like, I really liked him.
Yeah.
And he smiled when we said things and stuff.
Yeah, of course.
And
Yeah,
just
it was
being
really nice. But-
affable,
Yeah.
driven, and chaotic.
Yeah, it's an interesting mix. I think it also helps that he's mates with the CEO. And the reason I say that is how much do we see in the press and things about, CEOs not rating their CMOs and have a problem with marketing. And yet, here is a very trusting relationship.
Yeah.
Where they're,
It's a Steve Jobs, Lee Clow kind of
right.
vibe.
Yeah.
Right?
So there's something very interesting in that. Yeah, man, that was super inspiring. And seriously, it's given me a lot to think about in terms of how I run my marketing department.
It's good. Yeah, it's great. It's really good. Okay, well, onward and upward.
Indeed.